Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's daily brief recap. We unfortunately ran into some problems with YouTube earlier today. So, I want to just first check to see whether YouTube is recording. And it is. That's encouraging. So, nice to see that we were able to get this up and running, and I had class that I had to get to right after the daily brief, so unfortunately we just simply ran out of time. So, my apologies. This daily brief recap's a little bit later on in the day, but nonetheless, generally, market message I think hasn't changed a heck of a lot since we normally record this. So if we pop on over to Chart Deck, I'd like to talk to you guys about some ideas we're kicking around on the site. I did find it interesting that as Brexit talk and Brexit events get closer and closer, I'm hearing the sentiment is actually a little bit of a relief that things aren't going as badly as anticipated, and both sides seem to be very motivated to put a deal together. So what I've noticed here, and it's probably a function of of Brexit as well, a little bit of risk on, risk off conversation, and then finally sort of what are econs coming out of the States looking like. So actually, if we drill out maybe back out to the weekly chart, we can see this a little better. Interesting to see, and somebody even corrected me recently. It turns out the euro's like something like 55% of the US dollar index. So it's an awfully big component. I was a little bit snarky with, I always have to remember what the damn symbols are. I think it's B7. Or maybe it's 7B. They keep changing these currency symbols around. Nope. Let's try B6. Nope. Let's try 6B. Hey, there it is. I was a bit snarky with people like Goldman Sachs's coming out recently and actually suggesting that the British pound had bottomed. I think they came out like here. And I was kind of like, I don't know, man. I mean, I think this looks a little suspect. Let's go like so. This is a weekly chart, of course. So, we did have bearish fractals and stuff fired here. I expected the market to dip down into these areas, but it didn't. Market will do any old damn thing it wants. I suppose you could argue W's working their way higher here. So there seems to be a bit of money heading back into Britain. I'm a little worried here. Maybe this is a buy the rumor, and then we get to sell the news on the other side of the event. A little bit tongue-in-cheek about Goldman Sachs, but, I thought it was interesting, just like we'll talk about Bitcoin a little bit more later on. But I had actually highlighted on the chart recently where Goldman Sachs had come out, who had said, buy Bitcoin, big upside price objectives, and the market just went south from there. So that's usually what happens, but of course I don't have that chart in front of me. Sorry, everyone. Nope, not here. Anyway, I won't waste your time on that. Point I would just simply make is British pound and euro both seem to be moving up here on the anticipation of maybe a resolution of Brexit. Tough to say. But we also had some weak retail sales coming out of the States, and we had a really cool report by Jamie, our fundamental analyst, top down, all that kind of stuff, looking at the U.S. economy. And, I've been talking about this for a while. Were we going to get signs of weekly fractals on the U.S. dollar index, which in essence is almost like a risk on bet. People are taking their money out of T-bills and putting it back to work in the market. So that fractal has confirmed, right? And we probably ought to make reference for that going forward. That's a pretty important level. So 98.20. I thought we were going to push a little bit higher, but, like I said, market will do any old damn thing it wants. Could we maybe be a little overdue for some back and forth? One cool tool that I like to use to sort of see this is if I put on like a sine wave, right? And it's sometimes difficult to get these exact. I'm just gonna just sort of eyeball this here for you. But in essence, the market likes to move in a sine wave fashion. So we had a big up, then a down, then an up. Sure feels like we could go through a bit of down here. And really, the trend itself is perfectly intact as long as this low here is not taken out. So weekly fractal has fired. As we said, if we look at things like the euro, it has also fired that weekly fractal. Boom, boom, boom. And I don't know whether we saw it on the British pound itself. Where's the British pound? There it is. Not really weekly fractal. In fact, a very ugly price action. What I'm worried about here is this sure looks like a megaphone. Actually, I wouldn't go off there. Let's go off of there. Well, something along those lines. If we go boobity boop, there we are. Something like that. So there's the top of the megaphone, and the bottom of the megaphone looks like that. I mean, this is messy. So I'm getting the feeling it's almost like a buy the rumor sort of scenario. And nothing really to do trade-wise there. But I do actually like what I'm seeing out of the euro here, and I do think that the US dollar index is topped out here in the short term. As well, then this is an interesting conversation because it's not so much to do with risk on, risk off. If anything, this is the Japanese yen off the weekly basis. Everybody should look at this and see a big old M here. You also have a candle body engulfing pattern, which is pretty negative. So money's not flowing into Japan, big old gaps to the downside. Money's not flowing into Japan as a sort of, oh my God, get me the hell out of the system. What's it? The U.S. is going belly up. Maybe the only place to park my money is in Japanese yen. I don't think that's the case. I think, if anything, what's driving these currency markets right now is all around Brexit. The question ultimately here is this a buy the rumor, sell the news? Or have we actually put in serious long-term pivots here in Europe? If we move on from that currency conversation, sorry I took so long there, but weekly reversal there on US dollar, that's pretty significant. But if we head on over to things like the risk on, risk off conversation, interestingly enough, I actually think today was almost like a non-event day. These the risk off trade, and there's that yen just cranking lower. They've all been coming off in earnest, which to me sort of says like, okay, maybe we're getting closer to a risk on type environment. And if we look at the flip side, interesting to see oil is just floundering here at the bottom end of its range. Just can't really get going. It had the green light. If it wanted to rally, it could have, and it just is not doing much. Which maybe means that the gold market and all that can start coming back in earnest here. We'll see. And I've talked recently about how the gold market has hung in a lot better than things like the yen and the bonds. So we'll watch what happens here. I mean, maybe we carve out a big honkin' W here, break trend lines, and we start getting LJs and stuff. And if we get 3 higher lows, we might even start thinking about bullish bots. But for the short-term conversation about today, risk off assets caught a bit of a bid. Risk on assets, stocks kind of waffling here, and FYI, I'm getting really close to pulling the trigger on that put option that I want to buy on the stock market. Keep in mind, I already have a couple, so I'm just adding to the trade. Oil market just not doing a hell of a lot, and then if Bitcoin was indeed a leader on the way down, boom, 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 boom. And you can see how the stock market tried to play catch up. The oil market tried to play catch up. Good old Bitcoin, unfortunately, has just broken to new lows here this morning. This is the CME contract. No, I beg your pardon. This is Stamp. So, that is a pretty negative development. And if Bitcoin is a leading indicator, then what tells me is these guys could actually move up a bit more here. And of course, that stock market, if I get that sell signal there, I want to take advantage of that. So, moving on the conversation here. Talked a little bit recently about I wanted to wait for a nice polite inside bar on the S&P 500, and look at that, I got my nice polite inside bar. It's a miracle. And what's cool about this is, are we at, or in this case we want a short, so are we at or above reload zones? Yep, we're sitting right up top here. If we just draw the simplest trend lines, my hunch is we probably need to come back down into here somewhere. But we'll see how it goes. Only time will tell. Do have a really nice looking inside bar developed here today. So now if I get a trade below 29.8475 on this next candle, I actually get a sell signal. And the interesting thing is, like we said, with the oil risk on, there's the W. You can see the double bottom, but bang, a nice candle body engulfing pattern right after the double bottom, and very little follow through following. So, risk on's having a really hard time here now. And it might just be a function that, Brexit now is being priced into the market. China and Trump, that's now old news. All right, let's get back to sort of same old business. And the problem here for the crude oil market, I hate to say it, everybody, but I honestly believe this. We're at the end of a very long cycle, 17 and a half years. And believe it or not, for the next 17 and a half years, I'm actually a commodity bear. So believe it or not, looking for further weakness in energy really doesn't surprise me. So if this thing, potentially we could be carving out just a massive bearish AB equals CD here, which could easily take us into like $30, $40 range. Maybe that's what actually ultimately bases this gold, and all of the gold bugs and silver bugs get redeemed here. But I have to start seeing W's in the actual metal itself and the gold indexes. Keep in mind, Barrick just broke a key support line here, so real battle going on in Barrick. And this descending wedge in the gold and silver names is still just playing itself out. Still a lot of work to be done here for me to get bull. So that's sort of the state of risk on, risk off. We had our TRI SOF Options Club meeting yesterday. Not a heck of a lot of new ideas, but one area of the market that jumped out at us is the sort of home furnishings market. We had one gentleman, Casey, who's just an absolute awesome stock picker, going through and found this real darling of a little one here at $1.40 and change. You can see 50% rules. I'm not looking for new highs here, but any kind of bounce into this area, we should be able to make money. And then going through the rags and sort of, what are popular stocks and what do the analysts really like. The analysts are absolutely in love with this Lovesac company. I kind of like the idea. They make custom-made couches. I don't know about love seats or not, but custom-made couches. Visit their website, and we were having fun. The Lovesac, it's a little known place where we can get together. Anyway, pretty good fundamental story. Great looking chart. Nice W's coming in on the other sides of trend lines. Not bad. Basically, we all agreed that we're going to try and hunt this little gap level down in here. See if we can get a nice pullback against the lows, candle body lows, yada, yada, yada. Not going to go and buy it today, but definitely on the radar screen. So these are a couple names that we kicked around in the meeting last night. I think, TRI Options Club, I think this Kirkland looks perfectly fine. And of course, we've got bids working in there. Buy us 6 months of time, looking for some sort of bounce here with 50% levels substantially higher than the strike price of our options. So those are a couple new ideas for you to chew on in the home furnishing space. Heading on over to crypto now, and I've talked way too long here today. I have no idea how long it is, this video. But, what I would just simply say here, And what I've done is I've put two different time frames on here so we don't have to jump around. I'll just make this message fairly simple and sweet. You know, we've been talking about this forever. Down trend lines probably going to define it. Come on, you. That's not going to cooperate now. Downtrend lines probably define our sort of expectations for the near term. You can see how this downtrend line just acted like an absolute brick wall here repeatedly. So it seems to me that if you're going to make a decision off the corn, probably wait for this trend line to be resolved if you're thinking about buying. Probably a really good anecdote of why we don't really want to buy W's ahead of trend line breaks, because you can see the trend line just smacked it. And that Riot blockchain, same, almost exact same chart. And I got stopped out on the Riot. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody took this W, they get stopped out on this thing. So, you know, very simply put, just nice simple picture. We have not resolved trend lines, and we're not really in good trade location either-wise. We really should be thinking about reload zones if we want to buy. And also, too, there's an interesting gap on the CME futures contracts. I've always talked to, well, not always, but repeatedly I've talked about this tail being very suspicious. And that happens to line up nicely with the CME futures chart. I guess I can quickly show you that. Where is that? Over here. And this is what we sort of talk about on the site, Daily Brief. We spent a lot of time on this today. Where this looks very fractally. This is one of these billiard ball fractals. Midpoint, neckline, shoulder, shoulder, dump. If we do dump, look left. Where is support? You can see how the market came into these levels here, turned back up. I actually took this price action and overlaid it on the price chart. That's what this action is, just reversed. So if we just overlay that to get an idea of what to look for, you got to say, man, I mean, that's pretty good. So what this suggests to me is, and it doesn't really matter, we'll just, in fact, why don't we take it off? What it suggests to me is we're getting pretty close to this part of the fractal conversation. That's what this all is. And don't be shocked if there's a big dump here down to fill. There is that CME gap we talked about. 6,400, there is that tail. If we go back to that Bitcoin chart, right, that tail low is 6,600 on Coinbase. So, you know, everything's in place. The only question ultimately, and I thought this was kind of cool, is notice on the dump against these lows, there was actually some back and forth and some really wild price action in here. So my hunch is, and this is what I've sort of thought here, is against these lows, there should be some play. And if we zoom in really closely, I think what you see is, you know, we never like to take a trade on a trendline break, you know, front market structure, yada, yada, yada. So if you look at that little trend line, you could almost see that if there's going to be some play, it'll be like doink, 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 doink kind of thing. And then you look at this, right? Doink, 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 doink. I mean, it's back and forthy here, no doubt about it. But my expectations would be something along these lines. So moving down to lower time frames, you know, that's sort of the higher time frame. Are we in trade location? Where would Brian be interested? Green boxes, pretty straightforward. If we look at the lower time frame, right, there is that 4-hour chart with that trend line. Remember I said back and forthy, markets like to range 70 to 80% of the time. Notice we dumped right into 79 and change here, and now we've carved out a nice little doji. I wouldn't be surprised if this trend line has to be tagged here, but if we slowly put in a W through this area and turn back up, that wouldn't shock me either. 78.6s back against the original bottom, right? We think look left when we lose these lows. We got to be thinking down into here. So there is the dump. We got into basically the top of this doji candle right in here. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some playing around in these tails, but we'll see how it goes. Is this a really good place to put on new shorts? I don't think so. And if anything, just eyeballing this, what I see is sort of A, B. Actually, no, we got to go here. A, B. CD, something like that. So that also paints a nice little tag of those lows as well. So I could see a little bit further down here, but I wouldn't be surprised if, don't be shocked if there's some sort of pop up into this area here over the next few days. Only time will tell. You just don't know. With regard to swing trading, that kind of stuff, algos did fire signals. As well, we had this very sloppy, ugly-looking bot setup come in right off the POC. Market is working in lower. You can see that really important trend line. If anything, what I'd like to see, because remember, trend lines are traps, so I'd love to see like a zing zing kind of thing, where they're going to get a whole bunch of people panic selling on the 50% level tag. Then we can move our stop to scratch on the big bot. And you'll notice that that's 2-to-1 objective for algo. So out goes half, move stop to scratch on remaining, and just see where the rest of it takes you. And in a weird sort of way, I think you can kind of see that probably our fate over the next little while is something like that. So let's keep an eye, see how we act through here. Certainly no buy signals per se. If we talk about things like day trader plans, really low time frame, still vetting this out. Our commissions, even commission levels off things like MEX, even doable with a plan like this. I don't know. I think I showed you the spreadsheet that we drew up here of this plan. It's producing some pretty damn good looking results, but it's now it's just really a question of, can we make this work with the commissions? But as you can see, for the day traders, daily trend is down, 4-hour trend is down. So hunt every goddamn bearish fractal you see and just get in there. I did add a recent rule that after new 4-hour signals, I want to see some sort of signs of a failure off of like a 1-hour fractal. So that all started to come in at about, I guess it looks like it says October 13th. So if we zoom out on that and just get back to October 13th, that was all in this area. And you can see waiting on 1-hour fractal to begin hunting 15 minutes. So that all came in here. And I mean, you can see, Jesus H. Christ, this day trading model is busy. It's not like it's all just like, 100% win. We win all the time. The key here is when you are right, you get paid relative to when you're wrong. So every time you are right, you make $2. Every time you're wrong, you lose $1. And the teal lines are scratch trades. So, yeah, I mean, on balance, you can see loss, scratch, win, 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 scratch, loss, win, scratch, loss, win. And then last night, we just went on a tear. And really, keep in mind, everybody, this is a trend following model. So obviously, during trending markets, this thing's going to kick ass. And so basically, that's what last night was. Just absolute knock the cover off the ball. Not quite sure why I've lost my little maximizing tool. But anyway, so last night, and it was really interesting to watch this trade develop through the London kill zone. Great, nice fractal, went up and tested the highs a couple times. Look how close we came to the stop out level. And just nope. Then London kill zone came along and boom, into the target level. And what I've noticed quite a bit is that, these target levels, we often overshoot them by quite a margin. So in future iterations of this day trading plan, I might even expand the risk reward to like 2.5 to 1, 3 to 1, and just see what the results are. Again, this is the process of vetting out a setup. So, as I said, last night's pretty good session for us. Today's session, kind of wishy-washy. Here he's basically New York kill zone, quick dump, produced a win, consolidated, broke, was heading in the right direction, then quickly ratcheted back. And we have a simple rule that if 50% of the anticipated move is hit, then you move your stop to scratch. So basically that's what that was. And you can see we're even going through that now, and boom, we just got stopped out at scratch. So, as it stands, and the weird thing is about this trading system is I have no idea what's going to happen. I really don't. I'm just here every single day, just plotting the plots. Now I've got to go enter a new database notation, change this to a scratch trade notation, and rinse and repeat. That's just a trader's life. So there's your report for the day. Sure hope you enjoyed that. Not really seeing a heck of a lot out of altcoins to get too excited about, and I've talked way too much here today. So you got an added dose of Brian. Probably been blabbing away for an hour here or so. Hope you get some value out of anything I said here today. And of course, we do an hour, I think today was like an hour and 20-minute daily brief video, Monday to Friday. So if you want more details of anything that we talked about here today, of course, maybe consider joining the site. All right, have yourselves a great day. All the best, and bye for now.